Characters. Who are they? What are they? Who will they become? So much goes into the creation of a character, their backstory, culture, beliefs, image, eye color, description, personalities, and so much more. As readers, we only get a glimpse of what truly goes into each character. So grab a beverage and get comfortable as we explore this episode's character in depth with your host, Madilynn Dale. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Character Driven. I am ecstatic to bring you guys a new guest today. This is the first time I've actually got to interact with them, so I'm excited to see where this conversation goes. But while I have you here, and before I bring them in to introduce themselves, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and don't forget to check out all of our work. You can find the links to both of our books in the descriptions below. But without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest.
Hi. My name is Sirus. I am an author based in North Carolina, and I write largely dark fantasy, horror, dark speculative fantasy, that sort of thing. And the character that I'm going to be talking about today is Pharun Hephaestion, who is the main character of my dark fantasy book series, which is called the Draenir Saga. Right now, there are 2 books out. It's Uncrowned and Partitioned, and Condemned is the 3rd book that's coming out in May.
Ooh. I was wondering if this was a series that we were talking about. And it's pronounced Pharun, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure I was reading it right when I looked at the info. So let's just go ahead and dive into him. What is his backstory? Because I know there's some interesting things you've got for this character.
When he was born into a royal family, but he's not actually the king's son. A creator god, put the baby in his mother's womb. And so he was born a queen, but he's not the king's son. So the king saw the baby come out, was like, this baby looks nothing like me. He stabbed the mother a couple dozen times. So Pharun never knew his mother. And so Pharun, he grew up, the only father he ever knew never loved him. The king, whose name is Ankars, took care of him because the church said this child is obviously like some kind of, God-given child. It's probably not a great idea to have him killed. And he's like, well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean he's my son. So he let Pharun stay around the castle until Pharun was about 11. He has there are 2 other children that Ankars has that Pharun sort of recognizes as his siblings, but he was sent off at 11 to train to become a priest. So he was at the temples learning how to become a priest, and eventually he becomes the crowned priest, which means he's in charge of all 3 of the main sectors of religion. And then decides being crowned priest isn't enough. He believes he has a right to the throne, because in his mind, even though he's not Inkar's blood, he's still Inkar's first child. So he's like, still have a right to it. So that is his goal, is he wants to be king, but he also wants people to respect him. He wants people to, love him, fear him, and all that kind of.
Man. So is he ever given the truth of what happened to his mother at all in the story? Or does he find it out later? Like, how does he ever find out?
Yes, he is unfortunately very aware of what happened to his mother, because no one in the castle or the church will ever let him forget it. And he does carry that bitterness around. He definitely takes it out on Enkar's third wife. Enkar's married a woman named Lystra, who is the mother of Shrukian. Shrukian is the guy on this cover. So then, and this is fair. And Shrukian's the one that Enkars loves. So Lystra wanted to mother Pharun. She wanted to like kind of give him like she wanted to sort of accept him and give him what he never had. And he just kept her at arm's length. He's like, I don't want that from you. I'm not interested. Clearly, I wasn't meant to have this. Like he's the kind of like he's got that going on.
Oh, that hurts my heart. Like the fact that he's had to deal with that. So in training to become the priest and everything, does he find like joy while there, or does the pain and everything he comes like bringing, I guess the pain and stuff he brings with him, does that weigh him down and affect his ability to be happy?
It definitely does weigh him down because the high priest that he studied underneath was very abusive and he still never quite fit in. So he trained, like he studied and he became the best that he could be. At the end of the, you know, it didn't make him any happier. He didn't have that father figure he wanted, and he didn't start finding that happiness until he started traveling more and he met more people. There are some moments, there are people he does genuinely connect with and people who give him joy, but he has a really hard time trusting people. He had a really hard time getting to know people. And he's got a very, his demeanor clashes with how he feels very often. And I don't know how to explain it except to say that like on the outside, he appears very cold. He appears to keep everyone at his length. He appears to be very just like snappy, witty, that kind of thing. You know, everything is very,
yeah.
He has a difficult time like emoting. But if he thinks about himself, he's just like, I have a lot of emotions. It's just there's like this disconnect where he feels like he has a deep well of emotions, but they never show. He can't express them. There's like a blockage there.
Oh, and part of that's probably from all the trauma of his childhood and stuff, right? Like keeping that block there.
Absolutely. Like no one ever really encouraged that from him. And, you know, he had to watch Shrukian grow up and get all of their father's approval. He had to watch, you know, someone do half the work he ever did and get all of the glory, all of the attention, and all of the love. So he feels like everything he wants, he has to fight for, to the point where, you know, even when someone does come into his life and says, you know, I want you for as you are, he doesn't believe them and he doesn't give them access to him. You know, it's very much from that childhood of having like a very stringent religious upbringing. Like Enkar's was a soldier. He was a king. He was like, I'm, you know, very ironclad sort of personality. Yeah. And Malhai, the high priest, is just a very predatory sort of person that you could never trust. So Pharun's never had a reason to trust anyone.
Oh, does he find like a friend along the way, or does he make a friend that he's able to be close with at any time?
He did. He was, when he was a little younger, he was very close with his cousin because they were about the same age. So they had a bond for a little while. And then when he got older, he sort of latches on to another priest named Felix. And Felix represents a lot to Pharun. You know, like Felix is like this very soft, very sunshine. I would say golden retriever, but he's not quite that happy. He's like a more melancholy golden retriever, but he's very much like that. A lot of things that Pharun is just not allowed to be. And it's unfortunate down the road that their relationship gets so corrosive because, you know, Felix wants to give Pharun a lot of things, but, you know, he's just just can't receive them. But yeah, like they do get along, and Farron does find like I think in Uncrowned, when you first meet Farron and Felix talks a lot about how Farron would come into his room still shaking from like nightmares, and that he would comfort him and they drink together. So Farron does confide in Feet a bit.
Yeah, man. Where did the inspiration for this character come from?
I've known Farron for a long time. I think probably since like 2008 or something like that, maybe before. But he is definitely very closely related to me in a lot of ways. Like we share a lot of personality traits. And I feel like it's probably both the best and the worst of me made missed in a lot of ways. He's very close to me.
It's always fun to see how characters come out when you're like writing the stories and how much of yourself shows up in them. Do you have something that is your favorite thing about him? Like maybe like what do you think the best thing is about him?
The best thing, I mean, I think my thing about him is just kind of like, I like how snotty he is. I like how he can be very witty and very funny. Like he's got that dry as toast like kind of humor. I guess so. My favorite thing being like how he can glamour. Like he's very good at charming people. He's very good at making people enjoy his company and like him. I think that that's one of the most important things about him, is that he's got all these issues, but he just never lets anybody see it. And he'll talk about, like, if you get him drunk enough, he'll talk about his father all day long. But at the same time, like, he's not sit there and let you know, like you'll never know what he's thinking.
Nice. Those are the good personalities. And you mentioned in the document that he has some special abilities. Let's explore that. What are some of the things he can do?
He does have, so he's being a demigod, he is like, I think the right word is telekinetic. He can move things with his mind, and he like even like the wizard. Oh no, it faded out for a second. Sorry.
You're good.
But yeah, he can do a lot of like wizards or sorcerers can't do. That's definitely one. I don't remember what else I mentioned in the document aside from like the telekinesis, but like I know that when he does, I don't know if like, I guess that's like a spoiler or something, but eventually he becomes more powerful. Like he's very much like a show off in that sense. Oh, and he can, so I guess it might be kind of ridiculous. I don't know, but he can switch. So he's gender fluid. So he's technically he has been known to switch his body type. So he will go like femme for a while, and because every now and then he knows it makes his brother uncomfortable, so he'll like shapeshift and that sort of thing. So he can do that. But yeah, I think those are just two main things. He can shapeshift to a degree. And then he has telekinetic powers.
That is awesome. When does he first discover these powers?
He knew he was like telekinetic when he was younger because he's a demigod. His mind is incredibly powerful, but to the point where if he control it, would have started leveling cities by accident, kind of thing. So that was part of why Inkar sent him to the temple, because he was like, I don't have magic, I don't know how to deal with this, you need to go teach someone to teach you how to control it. And that's also part of why his personality is so controlling, is because he grew up with this burden of responsibility of you have to control yourself or people are going to start dying just by being around you. And so he put up not just like walls for people in his heart and his personality, but he put up walls around his mind, because if he, breaks down to a certain point, like buildings start splitting and it starts shaking kind of deal. So he knew that from an early age. he was responsible for a servant's death or two by accident before his father sent him away.
Man. So it was kind of like he had walls built up to control his magic, and because he was royalty basically as well. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to get through if you want to get to know him.
Yeah. It's like a fortress is not easy.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite scene with him in it that you wrote in his story?
Yes. I think, okay, my favorite scene is not anybody else's favorite scene. I want to make that clear. My favorite scene with him is when he is, well, there's kind of two. There's a scene in the first book where he is letting his brother know because their father dies. So he lets his brother know. He's just like, so, I'm going to be taking you there. And they home where Pharun touches the table and it splits down the middle, and Shuriken is like, talk him down. And Pharun's just kind of flaunting trying to intimidate his brother. Shuriken is very much like Enkar in the way where he's like very strong, very military driven. So, but he also wants to reason with him. So that head-to-head moment was one of my favorite parts, because you got to see, kind of Pharun starting to get what he wants. So he's less playing politic at that point. He's very like, you need to leave or I will kill you. And my favorite part was in the second book, where Pharun's been dealing with some council members who are trying to usurp him and challenge his power. And he has one of the lords come to him and is just like, hey, don't kill my boyfriend. And Pharun is just like, I won't kill your boyfriend if you marry me, kind of deal. And so him, again, like kind of flaunting his power and using this pretty little lord to get what he wants in that moment was a moment for me. So again, that's no one else's favorite part but mine.
Yeah, well, it kind of speaks to the corruption that happens when he does finally get to come into power, though, right?
Yes, because I feel like when you first meet him, there's probably a glimmer of hope. It's like, he's had a bad lot in life, but he's got his golden retriever and he's fine. Everything's gonna be fine. And then once he starts to seize power, you're just like, oh, it keeps getting worse. And it does. It's got this slide of corruption, and there's eventually going to be, he's not totally irredeemable. He has redeemable qualities, and he does hit a redemption arc, but things just get so much worse before they get better for him and the country he's unfortunately dragging down with him.
Man. Wow. Oh, so what were his emotions like when the king died?
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask him, he says, he didn't feel anything. He says that Enkar's had it coming and that it was absolutely, totally warranted. People die all the time. But if you ask me, I will tell you that Pharun, he went through the funeral completely straight-faced, didn't even want a funeral, but then he went into his room for like 3 days and did nothing but drink and mourn, because he is mourning that relationship he never had. If things had been different, one of the things Pharun hates the most is being told how like Enkars he is, because even though they're not blood related, they share a lot of the same traits. They share a lot of those like calculating, butchering, like there are just these moments where he gives you a look and he is so entire his father that people think it's uncanny. And he hates being told that, but he did when his father died, he really did mourn him, and he mourned the relationship that they never had. And it's kind of one of those people where he's like, is it worth wondering if it could be different? while at the same time just spending a little bit of time wondering if it could have been, wondering what their relationship could have been like.
Man. So what triggers his, like, I guess, what starts him on the path of redemption, trying to pull out of all the chaos and stuff that comes after he gets power and then things just fall apart? What is the turnaround like?
I think something that starts his turnaround is, honestly, he gets older. So the books are a series, and they do have, I've got them of a certain way they go. And I mean, he gets older, he looks at all of the people he's hurt, and he kind of just decides he's so tired of hurting people, and he has children, and he decides that, like, I think it really takes his children completely shunning him and shutting him out, and then having no one to go to after that for him to realize, maybe I'm doing something wrong if I can't get my own children to love me. And he does try to make things better. He kind of runs out of time before he can have a complete wraparound, but he desperately wants to do more and be a better father. And he's also one of those people who he is like a reset the whole board kind of person. So he feels like he's trying, but things aren't quite going his way as far as like him trying to fix them. He'll reset the board, he'll marry and have a new set of children rather than try to fix the old ones. He's like, okay, well, I messed up that relationship and clearly they don't want anything to do with me. I can still be a good dad, though, with everything I've learned. So I guess it's time to have new kids. He's kind of like a Plantagenet in that way.
Wow. So how many kids does he actually end up with? Like, and I guess wives too, or spouses.
He ends up with, I think 5 or 6 children of various nations. He has, like 3 at some point. He marries Lord Charlemagne, and then he marries second person I haven't quite figured out yet, and then he marries Nell, who becomes his husband at the end. And he, at one point, he does promise Felix he's going to marry him, and that all also falls apart. He's just not very good at having relationships.
Yeah, kind of sounds like he's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, people fall in love with him, and he just kind of leaves them devastated.
Yeah. I mean,
he doesn't always want to. He tried to patch things up at some point.
Yeah, but he's got a lot of baggage, like, that just kind of lingers. So, yeah.
He's easy to love, but he's hard to love.
Yeah, definitely hard to love. Hard to love for sure. So I guess I'm not going to ask that question because that's going to give spoilers. In the temple, are there any like events that stand out that helped shape him later on?
There are, he hasn't divulged a whole lot about the temple, like his younger days to me. Obviously the things that found with High Priest Malhai, and that is a lot of, like, I think what shaped us again, all that kind of thing. But as far as like, any specific event, most of them take place like outside of the temple, like when he was finally allowed to go home after several years of being amongst all the priests. He was finally allowed to go home to celebrate Shrukian's like birthday, and then I think he never went back after that. Shrukian turned 18, and Pharun was like, well, I have no reason to exist anymore, so he just kind of vanished. But he would come home occasionally for like holidays and things like that, and just never felt like he was wanted or welcome. So those are the kind of things that stand out most to him. But at the temple itself, I don't at this moment know if there's anything specifically that stood out to him as like, you know, a defining moment in his personality aside from just all the abuse.
Yeah. Does he ever rebuild the relationship between him and his brother to where they are actually like civil with each other?
Yeah, he actually does. He like, and I think that's, you know, that's honestly probably more to Shrukian's credit than it is to Farron's, because, you know, Farron probably would have extended an olive branch, but, you know, Shrukian spends a lot of time being like, you know, I want my throne back, but I also don't want my brother dead. So like, let's meet, let's talk about this. Like, let's work this. We can work this out. We're grown men. And, you know, Farron for the longest time, he's like, no, come with, you know, come over to my spot. I'll kill you kind of deal. But then Farron has a chance to kill Shrukian and he doesn't. And they, you know, Shrukian ends up staying at the castle, living in the castle, and they do build their relationship back up to, I would say, even a friendly one. Like, you know, they're kind of like a siblings at odds kind of relationship. They do get along because, you know, there is genuine love and connection there, and a lot of shared experiences that they can't just separate themselves from. So they do repair their relationship. And honestly, even though Shrukian can't defend a lot of Farron's antics, he will defend his brother's character till his dying day.
He's a very good brother, despite the other brother not being like, yeah. Yeah,
like, you know, I think it's kind of silly on Farron's end because, you know, when he realized that Shrukian couldn't take the throne because Shrukian has like a heart condition and he's just not equipped to take over such a stressful job. Farron was like, okay, I guess we can be friends now. So I'm just like, really?
Oh, man. So, Sirius, we have reached the end of our time. Go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you and where they can find this awesome series at.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. You can get the Draenir Saga pretty much anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your independent bookstore can order them through Indie Bound. And you can also go to my personal website, which is uncrownednovel.com.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show. And everybody remember, once again, to hit that like button and subscribe. Check out our books. And remember, it's always time to go indie now.
Finally, Farron extended his hand. On his thumb was a gold ring bearing an engraving of a dragon. He had 3 rings in total, but the one on his thumb was an artifact of the god Azrael. Enkars ground his back teeth so sharply that they ached. He reached out to take Farron's hand, raising it up and bending stiffly so that he might brush his lips against the gold. Farron's smile widened, and he withdrew his hand, preening visibly before every witness to his holy preeminence. Your Grace. Enkars finally greeted him. Your Majesty. Farron returned the etiquette. I trust your journey was not an unpleasant one. Enkars watched as the blond man that he did not recognize emerged from the coach. Farron turned his head when he saw his father's gaze change directions. It was not, the prince assured him vaguely. Allow me to present Felix Dartian, High Priest of Morkant. He was good enough to accompany me from East Averlin. Quite a long voyage for a single ceremony. Enkars raised an eyebrow. Surely you intend to remain with us for some time, Your Eminence. It will be my pleasure to remain here as our new crowned priest settles into his position, Felix said, bowing his head to the king. Felix has this dreadful notion that I might be in need of some support. I tried to dissuade him, of course, knowing that I will want for nothing now that I have returned home. Enkars clasped his hands behind his back. It was all he could do to keep from peeling that smug expression off Farron's face.